business becomes people's identities, because social media promotes the identity in the personal brand and the creation of a personal brand. The problem starts when people start trying to live that perfect life that they show online. A lot of people who are afraid of rejection are really just influenced by their ego and the insecurity around being seen to be rejected. Just having the underdog mindset will allow you to work harder than everyone else.
What makes a good marketer?
Number one, psychology, understanding what triggers people to behave in any type of way. Number two, a great marketer has to have an element of being data-driven and knowing how to look at numbers and dissect what's working and what's more of a priority for a campaign. But the most important one.
Welcome back to the show, guys. Just a quick one. The purpose of this podcast is to share the stories of the awesome guests that we have on, in the hopes that their story is exactly what you needed to hear on your journey to give you the encouragement and maybe even the inspiration that you were looking for to make a positive change in your life. And remember, the best way to make any changes that last is to first make sure that your environment supports the future you. You want this for both your physical as well as your digital environments, because what you continuously consume, you end up becoming. So make sure that you're subscribed to this channel so that you're making it easy to get access to an environment that supports your future growth. Enjoy the episode and stay visionary. Welcome back to the show, guys. My guest today, who has been featured on Dragon's Den, is the founder of the Start and Scale marketing agency. He went from being on benefits with universal credit at just £57 a week to generating multiple seven figures, building and nurturing his ideas and his teams. He's regularly speaking on stage to inspire and educate others, and is the author of the book, The First 365, How to Sign Four-Figure Clients from Anywhere in the World with Your Phone. And today I have the pleasure of hosting him on the show. Aaron Branch, welcome.
You know what? Best intro I've probably ever had, that one.
There you go. I think
succinct but detailed. Smashed it.
We'll cut the podcast here. That was a great episode. Thank you so much for being here. Mate, thank you so much for joining. I know you are crazy busy with everything that you've got going on, so I really appreciate you taking the time. Where I want to start is the beginning of that journey, which was covered in the intro very briefly.
Yeah.
Being on benefits, being on £57 a week.
Yeah.
Talk to me about that, Aaron.
Yeah, it's a great marketing headline, isn't it?
It
is.
is.
At the same time, there is a caveat to that story. And that was, I'd just left. So I'd finished uni, finished my basketball career up, and I'd just left a recruitment job for 3 months that I was working at in Canary Wharf. And then I moved back home. I moved into my partner's mom's house, and I was like, I'm going to start a business. Now, she was working, so she was supporting us at the time while I was figuring out how to do all of this marketing stuff. Social media was brand new back then. No one knew about social media ads. And then I realized that there was funding available, and that if I went on universal credit, there was a program through the Prince's Trust that could get me access to lending that otherwise I wouldn't be qualified for. So as much as I took the £57, it was really just for about 6 weeks that I got that little phone top up. that one Nando's a week.
Fair enough. That's super interesting. So that program was only accessible if you were
part of
universal
credit.
Someone needing universal credit.
Yeah.
What made you? Where did you get the idea of just going, do you know what? Forget everything else. I'm just going to do that to give myself the opportunity. Was there a risk of that potentially not coming through your way?
Yeah. You had to audition. It was like a mini Dragon's Den, actually. Okay. So they had their panel of experts. And it was so funny because I remember we're going to a place which is full of people applying to start their own businesses through universal credit, right? Mm-hmm. Now, not to say, opportunity shouldn't be there for everybody, but, people who might not be employable were applying for this funding to start their businesses. And I'll never forget, I turned up. So I had like 3 recruitment suits that I'd batch bought to start my recruitment job, right? I had those left over. I wore that to the audition, if you like, to go and pitch for why I should get some funding and a loan. It was a loan. It was an investment, right? Mm-hmm. And I got there. We're in a big U-shaped room, and the guy next to me's got a drawstring bag from the CEX shop, you know, the resellers of games
Computer
and
exchange
computers.
shop,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
remember.
yeah. And he's got a snapback on, and it was in Stoke, which was like half an hour north of Stafford. And I was like, he's like, what's your business? I'm like, yeah, I'm going to, create a social media marketing agency. We're going to help people with sales growth, all this amazing stuff using technology, social media. And I said, what's your business? And he said, I'm going to start a butty bar. I was like, what?
For everyone listening that has no idea what a butty bar is.
No. Before I even knew he said butty bar, he said butty bar. And I was like, a butty bar? And I was looking at him, and when you ask someone the same thing 3 times, and you realize if I ask them again, they're going to get upset. So I didn't know what this guy for the whole day was pitching until it came back around, and it was like, what's everybody here for? And he wanted to start a sandwich bar.
Yeah.
And honestly, I looked at his hands and his hygiene. There's no way you'd buy a sandwich from this guy. But that was the kind of precursor to getting funded. I got a £4,000 loan, and that was the start of my business.
Interesting. Okay.
Yeah.
Before we get into the business,
Yeah.
why did you work in recruitment? What was the
Money. So literally finished uni, finished my basketball career. I had some pro offers that I declined because it was just incredibly low to start in terms of a career. And I know if I'm starting here, there's no way I'm going to get to where I envision my life to be financially in security. So I literally looked at all my options, and recruitment, sales. I'd had sales roles before. I was a street fundraiser for the British Red Cross. So that was literally, you want to talk about sales skills, approaching civilians who want nothing to do with you with a big red coat on. I looked like a post box, right? 6'5" post box directly beelining towards you, and signing them up after a 20-30 minute conversation to a direct debit on the middle of the street. And those were some of the best sales skills I ever acquired. So I knew I could sell. I knew I could build relationships. I'd always been a leader on basketball courts, talking, vocal. So I thought recruitment sounds like a good fit. Uncapped earnings on the surface level of the advertisement, right?
Yep.
But it was one of my basketball teammates, and he said, I've been working here now for 2 years. You should come. You'd absolutely smash it here like I am. And he got me the role. It was in Canary Wharf, 40 Bank Street, beautiful building, rocking up in my suit. But reality was I was living in a 5-bed house share in Poplar, a HMO.
Got it.
Sharing a bathroom with 4 strangers. It was awful.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the sales skills, because I know you've done a lot of work in business, which we're going to get to in a second as well, right? What tangible skills have you taken from being on the streets doing fundraising for the British Red Cross?
First of all, conflict resolution.
And that's conflicts because
people don't want to
instigating
talk to you, right? And look, anybody who's been on the streets, right, fundraising, it sounds like such a small commitment to get in terms of a sale. £10 a month, £120 a year. But the targets were the targets, and we had some serious leadership telling us that we have to hit target. And when it comes to skills, first of all, building relationships on the drop of a dime. Taking anything, even any reference of I don't want to know, I do want to know, just a glance, that's your opportunity. So it teaches you to lose any kind of inhibitions and any kind of insecurities. And it's an immediate rejection. You're going to get rejected 98% of the time. No one's going to bother to stop, look at you, talk to you. And because you're comfortable, you have to build a comfort with rejection to the point where you walk towards somebody and you're not supposed to do this, but I knew my techniques and I knew I had to figure out a way to get this done. So one of my techniques was, it's easy for you to walk past the big 6'5" post box, right, in his red jacket, but it's harder for you as a human being to reject a handshake gesture. So if I put my hand out to shake your hand, as a human to human interaction, when's the last time you remember seeing someone's hand out and dismissing them? It never happens, right? It's not. It's so impolite. So I basically reversed engineered that scenario, broke a few rules. I don't work for them anymore. And I'd shake people's hands. And as soon as I got that hand, that was the deal done. Because I was never letting go. Until they got out their direct debit details, I was never letting go of that hand.
When you say you broke a few rules, was that part of like the training where
you're not allowed to touch civilians on behalf of the Red Cross?
Even if you're going to say hi to someone with a handshake?
Yeah,
It's interesting.
you're not, first of all, you're not supposed to leave your spot, your designated spot on the street.
Okay.
You should never interrupt someone's path of walking. You should never touch anybody. There were loose rules, right, on code of conduct. And, you talk about sales skills. Getting the job done is priority number one. So on the one hand, you've got all these rules. And don't get it misunderstood. I didn't innovate these rules. This is what the team leaders I saw having the most success were doing, right? They were doing all of these tactics and strategies. So again, it's losing that fear of rejection, knowing people aren't going to be interested, being able to build a relationship out of thin air with any type of person, any background, any ethnicity, any age group. And those skills have just been so invaluable.
Let's talk about rejection for a second, right? Because that is the number one piece of training that anyone who's interested in business or sales in any way needs to get comfortable with.
Yeah.
How did you get past the consistent rejection? Because let's be honest, someone on the street doing fundraising gets pretty much avoided like they've got the plague, right? So that's everyone wants to avoid you. Everyone wants to walk around you. People want to kind of run away when that person starts to approach them, right?
Yeah. When I see I'm out of there.
And you used to be that guy, right?
Yeah.
So what allowed you mentally to prepare yourself for the rejection and then keep going rejection after rejection?
Yeah. For me in sales, it's all a numbers game, isn't it? It's all about volume of offers, conversion rate. So the more offers you make in the top of your funnel, the more conversions you're going to get at the bottom of your funnel. But also, if you look at it from a marketing perspective, when you're standing on the street, you've got unlimited leads if you're in a decent populated area. So every one of these people walking past is a lead in the digital sense coming into your CRM. They haven't opted into anything, but they're there and they can see the offer. It's written on your chest. They know what it's about already, right? So for me, it was like, it wasn't even a consideration because it wasn't the first time I've dealt with rejection in my life. When I was playing basketball and I was trying to get my first scholarship and I was pitching out my first marketing material, which is videos of me playing in games, my highlight reel, my stats and figures, I had to pitch that out to hundreds of coaches to get seen and to get prospected by these coaches to potentially give me a scholarship. And there was hundreds of blanks, no replies. There was, probably not hundreds, but there was probably 40 to 50 conversations. Out of those conversations, one scholarship arrived, right? So, that was my dream. I'm not bothered about the rejection because I'm so laser focused on what it is I need to achieve. Fast forward when I was street fundraising for that 2 summers. It was 2 summers in a row. And it's the same thing. It doesn't bother me. It's like, I've got a goal. I've got a focus. How am I going to get there? Rejection is, a lot of people who are afraid of rejection are just really just influenced by their ego and the insecurity around being seen to be rejected. But that generally means there's not enough humility in that character.
How does someone build that humility into their character to achieve the ability to move past the rejection or worry of rejection?
It's just the mindset. I think it's all about how bad do you want what it is that you're trying to achieve, number one. And it's not necessarily how bad do you want it, but how bad do you not want the alternative, which for me, after the whole basketball scholarships, bursaries, in London as well, had a great time with London South Bank University. And with those experiences that I had immediately going into the workplace, working from 8:30 to 6:30, 7 o'clock, because it was frowned upon for you to leave in your contracted hours in recruitment, especially if you're just getting started. And to live in a house share with 4 strangers. I've been living in, a flat for 3 years in London. I had 1 year in halls. And before that, I was living with all my teammates in America. So it was a great time, all the parties and all the camaraderie in the house every single day. So to be living with strangers and to know my decisions up to now have led me to this place where I am now walking 35 minutes to go sit in an office for 10 hours where it's going to compensate me this for my time. This is my hourly value right now because of all the decisions I've made in my life. There's no way I'm ever going back to that. So when I started my business, it was like rejections everywhere, right? And my first client ended up being one of my best friends who did it out of pity And he just signed up just to say, hey, whatever you're doing, I'm going to support it because I know it's probably not going great. And that for me is all down to the mindset you have. Is it, I'm going to get this achieved no matter how long it takes, or will I be able to accept the alternative, which is a house share with 5 people and an hourly rate, which you can barely live on.
It's a very self-aware statement to be able to look at your current reality and go, my decisions have got me to here. And it's also very self-aware of yourself to know that getting past that rejection and just being persistent in what you're going for is necessary to create a success. Where does that mindset actually come from? How did you develop that mindset? Hey guys, just a quick one. This video is sponsored by Poddify, our podcast-based marketing and content creation agency that really helps our clients to create content that builds awareness, showcases authority, and keeps it authentic. This is so important because Google's research shows that for prospects to become clients, they need to consume at least 7 hours of content across 11 different touch points on at least 4 different platforms. So with more personal branding style content out there, the last thing that your prospects want to see on your socials are those posts that say, buy my stuff. So if you're a business owner or you know someone that could use our expertise and service in creating the right type of content, then get in touch using the link below in the description and we'll give you a free consultation to see if and how we can help you. Thanks so much. And for now, let's get back to the episode.
I don't know, I think it's sport, basketball, 100%. Because if you look across basketball, there's not one South Asian in the NBA, right? There's no Punjabi people in the NBA. They're on grass hockey fields or we're on cricket fields, right? Yeah. That's it. Shout out Rav Gore.
Yeah.
So for me, it was like always the underdog. So when I started playing basketball, most of my teammates were more athletic than me. We don't jump high as Indian people, you know what I mean? As Punjabi people, we don't. So I'm always getting out jumped naturally, right? I'm underskilled because I started playing late, and that underdog mentality can drive you through because the underdog will work harder, or just having the underdog mindset will allow you to work harder than everyone else. So I would stay behind every training because I was always in this mindset of I'm catching up. These guys are better than me. They're faster than me. They jump higher than me. I've got to catch up and put in more time to even compete with them at the level that they're at. And that never left me because when I got to the top of my skill set or my class, if you like, in England, then I got the opportunity to play in Canada for a year. And then I got recruited to America. And it was like every time I jumped into the new environment and stretched myself and had massive discomfort of leaving everything behind, that's when I saw there's a new level to be attained. So I've played against people in the NBA that are in the NBA right now. Nick Stauskas, Andrew Wiggins, these names that Andrew Wiggins plays for Golden State. He's won a championship, #1 draft pick in the NBA. He's Canadian, right? So I played against him while we were there.
Wow.
And, you think you're getting to a progress that you can be proud of and that you've achieved something. Then you jump into a new environment where people are way further beyond what you thought was the standard. So you got to stretch yourself again. And that just compounded over time mentally to a place now where hard work is just normal, right? Going after it, working hard, being disciplined, not being afraid of rejection and being resilient. It's just normal now. And that's where that mindset probably comes from.
I love that. I think sport has so much to do with developing discipline.
Yeah.
Into your mindset, and then that discipline filters down into everything else you do, because if you've got the discipline to just keep going, well, then it doesn't matter how many times you get rejected because you're going to keep going.
Yeah.
Let's talk about your business, which is Start and Scale, which is a full service marketing agency. You started your career in recruitment. There was basketball involved. There was you were looking for funding for starting up your own business. Why did you start a marketing agency?
Do you want to know the truth? So
Yes,
I've got an elaborate story. There's always a marketing headline story and then there's the real story.
Give me the marketing headline story and then let's hear the real story.
So there's a guy, whilst I was working in recruitment, the real story, they're a mash of both really, but my last year in university, I studied media, music and sonic media. So that's audio production. So all of this stuff here is like triggering for me, this environment. 'Cause I'm looking at everything. The whole setup is like what I did for 3 years. And in my last year, my dissertation was on why musicians and artists should never sign to a major label. They should promote themselves through social media and monetize their audience through advertising, merchandise, through marketing themselves on social media platforms.
Okay.
Now, I didn't realize the impact that that would have, because for a whole year, I wasn't studying music. I was studying marketing, because everything in my dissertation, which is a banging read, I've thought about releasing it loads of times, but times have changed. So those strategies don't necessarily exist now, right? And that really prepared me with the skill set and the awareness of, wow, everything that these musicians that I've said they should do to promote themselves, businesses should do on social media. Now, this is really early, 8 years ago, 2016, where businesses, you say Facebook ads, they have no idea what you're talking about, right? So there was that resistance. People weren't solution aware. But when I was working in recruitment, completely parked everything from my degree. There was no skill set really transferable from the media side. And there's a guy who I want to give a massive shout out to, Sean Brown, and he runs an incredible business now, some amazing clients. I think they just raised at a 50 million plus valuation, right?
Wow.
Serious entrepreneur, Sean Brown. And Sean at the time, my partner, Holly, and his partner were mates from back home, and we're all in London together. So we met up and we're the plus one. So we're like, how you doing? What's going on? And he showed me on the balcony of his, flat in Poplar, East London, he showed me a page for a yacht company that he was managing and posting content on for £1,000 a month. So it wasn't concept. It wasn't some hearsay. Like, I'm getting paid £1,000 per account I manage. And I was like, what do you do? I just post images, because back then Instagram wasn't a video platform.
Yeah.
I just post images of yacht related content and, bring it all together, write the captions and grow their audience. And at that moment, I was like, holy shit. And he was like, with your degree and you could probably do this better than me. Passing comment. Immediately, I was ticking. I was like, wow. So if I'm getting $2,500 from this job in recruitment, no, it wasn't $2,500. After tax, it was probably 2K on a 2.5K, pay slip.
Yeah.
I was like, if I could just convince, this is just all about maths. If I could just convince two businesses to let me do what Sean's doing for that yacht company, I'll match my salary, and I've got to do 24 posts, 30 posts for each of them per month. That was a no-brainer for me. And that was when I saw the value proposition and a monetary exchange from a really credible source. Because at the time, he was developing his first app called Hatch, which he eventually went on to sell to Social Chain. And then he became head of their talent at Social Chain under Steve Bartlett.
That is amazing.
Yeah, so shout out to Sean, because I've told him before, like, without that conversation, and again, I don't even believe it was Sean doing anything consciously, but the universe knew, at the time when I was working in recruitment, you want to talk about manifestation, right? I built a page, which you can look up on Instagram right now. It still exists. And the username on Instagram is Money Hungry Grads. And every day walking to the office, to my recruitment job, which I was grateful for, by the way, I don't want to throw any shade. They're a great company. I would write and design a post on my 30-minute walk through East London to 40 Bank Street and get my upload done for the day. And it was mainly 2 posts a day. So I was manifesting this already. I'm already building a profile. Now I just need to figure out who else can I do it for. And I was also trying to build my own case study. Look at this page that I've grown from 0 to 1,000 followers in however long. So again, it's that manifestation. Them captions, I've read them back a couple of times when I remember about the page, but like, my belief systems were very straight down the line of where I want to go and what I want to achieve. But yeah, that's the real story.
That's excellent. I'm going to have to check out that Instagram page.
Yeah, man.
Definitely. I'll link it for everyone.
Money Hungry Grads.
Yeah.
Don't link it for everyone, because I might be a bit provocative. Who knows what I was saying back then? I mean, it was literally 8 years ago.
Wow. Okay. So you've got Start and Scale,
Yeah.
which is a full service marketing agency.
Yeah.
Right. Talk to me a little bit about the journey that you've been on
Yeah.
to grow and scale your own agency
Yeah.
to doing multiple seven figures. Talk to me a little bit about that.
Yeah. So it hasn't been easy. That's the first thing I'll say. When it comes to the marketing agency, for the first 5-6 years, it was year-on-year growth, grew the team, and it was fueled by an imagination of what's possible, right? So it was like, first 2 years, it was me plus maybe 3 contractors. Then I wanted to build an in-house team. So I started hiring in-house. To hire in-house, I need office space. So we had the city centre offices, in Birmingham. We had the team members in-house, which at the peak of that business, it was about 22 staff in-house. And, we'd worked with hundreds of clients. We've now worked with over 1,000 clients in my career. Many of them I've never even spoken to because I built a sales team that would sell products on the company's behalf in-house as well. And again, all of these things were new challenges and learning curves that I had no idea what I was doing with. The first thing I realized when I hired new team members was I'm an absolutely shit manager, right? I have no management skills. I have leadership skills, which on a basketball court is give me the ball, let me do something, right? But as a manager, as a nurturer, as somebody with empathy and compassion, a different side of the personality altogether, I discovered that I had a lot of weaknesses, right? So I then implemented structure where we had executives, team leaders, a performance manager managing the managers, and that performance manager would speak to me. And it was at that point where, after growing the business, giving it everything I've got, doing well over 6 figures a month consistently, it was like, I'm about to have a baby. And I felt like I'd earned the right to go and just be a full-time parent, because having kids is a very big thing for me. Not because I was unable to have kids. Like I've always imagined, even in my book, there's a line in my book, which I may have wrote and deleted, but this is for my unborn children, right? Written for my unborn, or dedicated to my unborn children, right? And they've always been top of my mind because I've always imagined what kind of father I want to be. And that's when I left. And the business at the biggest it ever was, I left and disappeared. I sold equity to management. So I kind of built a management buyout in a sense. And I sold equity to management. All the structure was there. Clients are there. We're the biggest we've ever been. I was like, I've done it. I've clocked it. It's finished. Game over. Challenge completed. And then I didn't want anything to do with it, because as much as that sounds like a great scenario, and it was what I imagined, all these clients, all these team members, automation, management, leadership, money, right? Also, it was chaos because operations aren't at the sophistication level of the speed of growth. So we're bringing in and building departments that don't have operating procedures. Or if we're hiring a manager, what's the manager's SOP to manage all of these teams? When do they report? How often do they report? We're kind of like making it up as we go along. And ultimately that led to that business failing, because during that time of absence, a new shiny object came along, which was called Deliver Me.
Which was your debut on Dragon's Den.
It led to the debut on Dragon's Den. The debut means, it sounds like I'm going back. Yeah, I'm back. But idle hands are dangerous things to have, idle hands. I'm there at home. We did have some health complications with our firstborn son, Neo. So we were in hospital for a few weeks after he was born. And that also made it like super real, like, whoa, I've got to be here, but I've got to make sure, my partner's supported and baby supported and all the rest of it. So that led me to then taking that time off. And then about 5-6 months into that time of absence and not really even looking in that direction, the shiny object came along, which was Deliver Me. And I heard a compelling story. I liked the idea of the business. I liked the brand. And I was like, you know what? I want to invest in this, because I knew also, if I take all the skills that I've got, all the track record, all the personal brand, and plug it into this business, it has huge scale. Because the initial understanding was, yes, it's not going to make a profit, which many of these on-demand delivery apps don't for years, just raise and raise and raise. But because it's tech, valuations, this can go really far, really quick. And then I plugged all of my energy into that brand, which eventually led us on to Dragon's Den, raised 250K in 4 days from my Instagram. You know, I did a crowdfunding, which we did in 4 days, which was phenomenal. Had a lot of support, a lot of momentum, a lot of press. And ultimately, that business no longer exists either. We scaled it to a 1 million valuation. We went for the 10 million valuation off the back of the Dragon's Den campaign. I'm talking online, offline, billboards. We had everybody just obsessed with what this mission was, right? And it was a smash hit marketing campaign. We had 2.4 million in pledges, and it's all documented on my Instagram.
I've seen.
The whole thing's just there. It's a timeline of events. And we had 2.4 million in pledges. There was a slight delay in our crowdfunding because people pledge, they put their card details in, they sign their waivers, whatever. And then collection date is all at once on the launch of the campaign. During that time and the small delay, the Russians invaded Ukraine the week before our launch date.
Oh, bloody hell.
Which meant everybody was cost of fuel, cost of living, all of that stuff. And that eventually led to us getting nowhere near our 2 million raise goal. And that was the end of it, because that business was never going to be profit generating, which then brought me back to agency life and also gave me a lovely universal pat on the back to say, hey, relax, do what you're good at, bro. Stop getting so involved with everyone else's missions, right? And I do think, you know what? It's mad because the amount of energy I put into that campaign, that business, I was a minority shareholder.
Interesting.
What the fuck was I doing? I put more capital in than the founder. All the investment raise, came from me. Like, there was no funds more than 10% that came from anywhere else. So my relationships, the majority of people who invested were past clients that I've made hundreds of thousands, if not millions with, to help their businesses grow. So that relationship leverage, it was a great move by the founder at the time.
Amazing. Okay, so that you went through that.
Yeah.
And that business no longer exists, right? For the reasons you just went through.
Mm-hmm.
What made you go back to the agency, and how has it been going back to something that you built that then ultimately suffered in your absence?
Yeah, it was, it brought a lot of anger because I felt like the way that I set that up, it wasn't my responsibility to run and scale that business any further. I felt like when I was at the controls, I didn't feel like it. The profit and loss statement showed it, right? And it's ultimately all my fault though. I don't hold anyone accountable but myself. It was me starting a family, me doubling down on that mission, and me saying, you know what, as much as it was, I'm doing all of this so I can leave and have a kid. Same time, the rational human being would say, put the business into maintenance mode, get efficient, cut all costs and risk, and then go and have your kid and be a father and be away from it all. I left the business at the biggest it'd ever been. So it's like handing over this huge operation to somebody who's never run an operation before, but they did a great effort. And it wasn't down to anything other than experience. And we're still friends to this day, right? And it's like, for me, it was emotional in the sense that, you know, if this was something that I prioritized the same way I did Deliver Me and didn't have the entitlement, didn't have the ego, was definitely a factor in all of this as well. You know, everything I touched worked, and it still does. It's just, for how long will it work? Is it sustainable? And it's like, the lessons and the cost of an education I got from that is phenomenal, because what blew my mind is when I did start again, you know, back then, I achieved what we had with 15 to 18 team members with 4. And that's sales and that's delivery. 4 great team members, yeah, which was ultimately the downfall of that business, by the way. We didn't hire for talent. We hired for speed. We've got this many clients that are waiting to get launched, get as many people in the chairs who remotely resemble somebody who could potentially do that job. Not everybody, but there was a lot of those hires that weren't a good fit, but we just needed it to be done because we'd already sold the offer, right? So it was sell, find delivery, and that kept happening because we're so good at marketing and sales. So it's like the gift and a curse in a way. And through that experience, it was like, wow, coming back to it, scaling up again, client retention being the biggest and the best it's ever been, which is the number one factor when it comes to scaling an agency. Do clients stick around? Do you give them a good enough result for them to keep paying you every single month? And that arc of people sticking around is the best it's ever been, and it has been for a long time. And part of that's down to me really caring, because the humility aspect has come into it, where I really value every single business we work with. But also, I'm no longer trying to be the biggest. I'm no longer trying to solve my insecurities about I'm an entrepreneur, I'm successful, look where I live, look where I drive, because I've done it all. So it's like there's no more vanity involved with it. Now it's actually build a great business, do great work, and also make sure everybody in the business culturally is enjoying themselves and being heard. Because again, back then, I hold my hands up. There's some relationships with staff members that didn't end on the best of terms because I might have been a bit of a tyrant.
Few things there. First one, hire for speed, not for talent.
That's what we did.
That's what you did.
It does not work.
Which, I mean, that totally makes sense. But there's this, for some people listening to this who might be at that point of, I need to get money in ASAP.
Yeah.
They might be very tempted to go for, you might not be the right person entirely, but I know you could get me a result quickly. What would you say to that person right now?
Just put them on a contracting role. Don't hire them in-house PAYE. It's that simple. It's a lot easier to get rid of a contractor than it is to lose a real full-time employee. There's a lot of red tape, and that's the other thing. Scaling teams beyond 10, 12 people, all of a sudden now, company handbook, all these legal procedures, disciplinaries, performance improvement plans. I'd never heard of any of this stuff because I'd worked a job in a recruitment agency in an office for 3 months of my life. I've never been in a disciplinary. I've never been on a performance improvement plan. I don't know any of this stuff that exists, which is actually a downfall of not having that experience, which is why the average founder is over 40. It's a great idea. You know what I mean? Wait. So we're all early anyway. Yeah. So for me, it was just the cost of an education. But luckily, I mean, I do class myself as quite an intelligent person, right? I've made some good investments along the way. So yes, taking that time out, losing a little bit of income for a very small period of time is what it is. But at the same time, I didn't put all my eggs in one basket. Deliver Me wasn't my only investment, right? So for me, it's like when it's good, be smart, take a bit of risk. And ultimately, you could say, Deliver Me, getting me onto Dragon's Den, building my profile, putting me in front of millions of people, allowing me to then go and speak to so many really high-level people. Because as soon as the Dragon's Den card comes out, people do listen more because they know to get on the BBC, you have to be validated. So when I went on there and say we're doing 530 grand a year and they've had the bank statements, they've had the pay slips, people know there's a process of due diligence.
Yep. And
you could say that was worth the money I lost in that business and the time I lost anyway, because, man, I've been in business since 2016. I'm still a baby. But even when I was at 3 years into business, 4 years, to somebody who's never had a longer career than 3 months, that's a lifetime. It's 10x.
Definitely.
So now it's like context, maturity, and sustainability. But also, it's not all about this end goal. Oh, I need to get to 100 grand a month. Done it again. So it's like, why don't we have a good time while we do it? Why don't we cherry pick and make sure we're not just saying yes to every potential deal that's on the table? Does that sort of make sense?
Absolutely. Yeah, I love that. You also mentor people in starting their own agency or
scaling their own agency.
Scaling their own agencies.
We don't really go with the startups.
Fine. So couple of questions on this, right? Number one, obviously you've got your own agency.
Yeah.
It's thriving. You guys are doing extremely well. Anyone can look on Start and Scale's website. Yeah. You can see your ads coming up on
client case studies, testimonials, it's all there.
So while that's building in the background, why are you also choosing to focus your energy on helping other agencies
Yeah.
scale? And do you ever have the worry or the feel that by helping them scale, it's going to potentially impact your business?
Great question. Number one, why do I help other agencies? It's profitable. Let's just say what all the other coaches won't say. It's a great business. If I advise you, you do all the labor and you get a 5, 6, 7x return, that's a win-win situation. The second factor is more of a emotional one, which is I've sat in the chair of all these other agencies. First 3 months, no clients. First year, suffering, until I found a coach who really actually told me this, and this. This is what works. And then that unlocked a whole avalanche of progress that I made very quickly. So I believe in coaching because I'm a great student. So for me, the agencies and marketers who are looking for help, it's very easy for me to copy and paste our processes, our systems, our ads, our onboarding procedures, everything that we give in this program. Mm-hmm. And it's less of a mentorship, it's more of a partnership, because the number one emphasis for me is not to scale the biggest agency program. That's not my ambition. It's actually to build the highest concentration of marketers that, first of all, love what they do, being a marketer, and second of all, get their clients results. That means that we turn away a lot of people from the program, because a lot of people who start agencies, which is why I say we don't really tend to go to the startups, even though we could help them, is they're starting it just for that monetary desperation goal to be fulfilled. They need to eat, they need to earn. And that means that sometimes the clients are the second priority. And for us, our emphasis and our values are, first of all, on peer-to-peer education, which is, I'm not your mentor, I'm not your guru. You know what I mean? I'm not here to be, you don't need to treat me like Tony Robbins, and I'm not going to treat you like I'm Tony Robbins. Tony Robbins is a great coach, by the way, one of my faves. But like that level of posturing, like, you know, the iconic status, I'm not interested in that anymore. So for me, the emphasis of our agency partnership program is, number one, peer-to-peer support. We've got agencies at all different levels. And that's valuable because what people want from their marketing businesses is only relevant to them. The same person who wants a 30K a month revenue for a 15K profit could be the happiest person in the world. There's not this, if you make more money, you're more fulfilled. There's not that kind of scale in our program. So it's like finding an agency model that fits you, learning from others who are at different levels, collaborating on projects, because everybody has their individual area of excellence. You can't be the best at everything. So another one of our key things is deal sharing. If you've got an opportunity to bring someone as a second pair of hands on a video shoot, go to the network, because you know I've qualified them. You know I've put them through a series of questions to ensure we're only bringing the talented people into our agency partnership. And that changes the dynamic. You'll never see anybody in our group posting about, just closed the client for $5,000. Whoa, look at this new watch I've bought. That's not the energy, because that's not our value system. Ours is all about peer-to-peer support, collaboration, and also experiences as well. So we run multiple events a year. I bring the best clients, the best people in my network who are doing well on socials to come speak on stage. And we can all learn from them. One of the events that I held recently, I didn't even give myself a speaking slot because I wasn't trying to sell nothing. I'm trying to just give value to my community. And I don't have all the value. And it takes a little bit of a different mindset to say, don't just learn from me, learn from all these guys as well that I learn from. I'm not the goat of this. You know what I'm saying? I'm on the journey myself, and that only comes from wins and losses.
I love that. What makes a good marketer?
Number one, psychology, understanding what triggers people to behave in any type of way. So taking action. You've got to know how to either scratch a pain or drive attention towards a pleasure and an outcome, whether that's products or services. Number two, a great marketer has to have an element of being data-driven and knowing how to look at numbers and dissect what's working and what's more of a priority for a campaign. But the most important one, being creative. If you're going to be a great marketer, You need to know how to visually represent products, offers, and drive as much attention to them as humanly possible. And creativity is in short supply. Trust me, I've hired 50, 60 marketers in my career. Being creative is like a whole amalgamation of different life circumstances. Did they paint when they were a kid? Did their mom make them draw or dad make them draw on a kitchen table? Did they ever write stories? Like, these are the things that I did as a kid. Whether it was for my benefit or my mom just couldn't be arsed, so here, draw something or color something in, right? But I used to write stories on our first ever computer in the house. We didn't have the internet. And I used to load up Word and make up stories and just write random stories. I wish I had those files. They're probably making 0 sense, right? I had no grammar skills. I'm a young kid. But I was always in my imagination. And that's a really core element of being a good marketer, creativity.
Do you think that someone who maybe didn't have that exposure early on can foster that creativity and build their imagination to the point of becoming a great marketer?
Yeah, and I think no marketer should see themselves as on an island. I'm not the best at everything. Like I've said it multiple times, right? Like, if I'm not good at being creative, go and find somebody who you know can generate ideas. And it isn't ChatGPT. ChatGPT isn't the answer to everything. It's a machine. Like, it's not there yet. And you just see the same regurgitated ideas now because everyone's shoving all of their creativity that they don't have themselves into ChatGPT for the answers, right? Go and hire someone who's creative. Go and hire a creative director on a contract agreement or a strategy call and just get them to flood new angles and ideas to your project or your campaign. You don't have to focus on, I need to be the best creative person. Everybody isn't going to be the best marketer, are they? It's just the statistics and fact of life. And also what determines you're a great marketer, how much money you make your clients, how much money you make yourself. It's all a different perception. So you don't see yourself on an island. Whatever skills you don't have, go and get help. Same with me, like whatever I don't have now, I'm happy to accept I don't have it. Instead of reading book after book about how to be a great manager, just go and hire an operations manager that loves doing that. And I can focus on what I love to do, which is nothing. I'm joking. Sitting on podcast talking about it.
Yeah. As a dad, and you became a dad for a second time very recently as well.
Yeah.
Huge congratulations on
Thank you.
Has being around your kids helped you change your mindset around how you approach marketing?
I wouldn't say marketing, but I'd say business.
Okay.
And before kids, the biggest transition in my life was having my kids. Before having kids, it was like business was everything. And every minute, every waking hour and minute, I'm in business. I'm doing something to push that agenda forwards. And it was an obsession, right? And that was really because I'm putting the same amount of energy and effort that I did in basketball into business, but I had no alternative. Everything that I looked at as an alternative was not productive for my goal of financial freedom and security for my family that I want to be a provider for. And when it came to having my kids, you suddenly have an alternative which is not monetary related. So it's like, my kids don't know, well, they must have some sense. Well, my oldest one anyway, like he lives a pretty good life, but he doesn't know how much money I make. He doesn't look at people like adults do and say, what's the social status of this human being? They don't care. So you lose this thing that you've put all this energy and time into and building this status and this idea and this personality of being an entrepreneur, right? This on-trend thing. And then a kid comes along and they don't give a shit about it. So it's like, how much value does that actually have? How much value does being perceived as successful have when the best relationship I have in my life, the most unconditional relationship with my son and my daughter, neither of them value that thing that I've put my whole last 7-8 years into. So that definitely shifted my perception on business. I've put a lot of time in the early days to make sure that I've been there, been present, nurtured, supported the family. And now I'm back in growth mode, which is even why this podcast took so long to happen.
Yep.
Now it's like, okay, lessons from the past. kids are kind of getting to that age where they can get into some supported childcare with education. Now it's like, oh, back to the mission at hand.
Love it. So, did a little deep dive into your socials.
Yeah.
And there was one, I picked out a couple of quotes, but we've actually covered
Quotes.
a couple of quotes from
From me?
Yes, exactly that.
This will be interesting.
So, listen, we've actually covered quite a bit of what I'd really liked already anyway.
Yeah.
But there's one that I really want to get your live take on, okay? Before we finish off with the final four questions. This is super serious. So,
how deep did you go?
I actually went quite far back. I was scrolling for a while. But the one that stuck out the most was something that you wrote down as, some people teach it, some people live it. And I know that what you're referencing here was where to get your mentorship from, right? What do you mean by some people teach it and some people live it? And what should someone look for in a mentor based on that quote?
Great quote. Some people teach it, some people live it. I've said it 100 times. I've said it 100 times over. The meaning behind that quote is from a lesson that I learned very quickly after losing money, having a great mentorship experience myself and getting a lot of progress. And then you start looking for more. Who else can teach me? And then all of a sudden, I'm paying money out and I'm not making progress. And there was a realization, and someone gave me some advice, and they said, look, don't do what, whoever you're aspiring to learn from, right? Don't do what they do. Don't do what they say, do what they do. So if somebody's advertising to me on social media, talking about a lead generation strategy, which is knocking on doors, why aren't you doing the knocking on doors? Why are you advertising? Now, that's a key thing for me, wherever I've seen somebody who's given me a lot of value, and then I can see it implemented by them, and they can show me these are the results right now, not what I did 12 years ago when I was running that business or whatever they took that information from. I've always made massive progress because I could trust and be confident in executing a strategy because it's completely validated. And for me, you know, there's a lot of coaches I've worked with that have been phenomenal, a few that haven't. And whenever it comes to, it's not even about, you know, promoting what we do, but implementation is what changes everything. Knowledge is just knowledge. It's actually quite useless. Literally, if you don't use it, it's useless. So if you're going to go into any kind of partnership or mentorship program with anybody, look at how do they implement this with me? Is it just going to be a set of videos that they send me and that's it? That's a course, right? I've never really done well with video courses. What we do and what I prefer from my coaches and mentors is live implementation. If I want to learn how to sell and deliver a content shoot, can I come to yours? Which we do. So we'll have agency partners who have never sold content creation before come to one of our client-facing shoots and be a second pair of hands just to see it from the other side. It's real, it's live. How do you direct it? Like, that's implementation. If you want to see, you know, how an ad account's run, have a call with one of our media buyers and we'll show you live accounts at different scales. And it's not about proving that we're really doing this. It's more about, you can't have confidence nowadays with everything that's marketed online. You can't, because there's too much going on. So rather than you half stepping into a strategy or a new way of thinking, how about you just come and see it in action?
I love it because it's going back to how it used to be done, which is get on the job experience.
Yeah.
And that's essentially what you're providing.
It's a bit old school.
Yeah. And I love that.
But honestly, you should see the difference in results.
Yeah, I'm not surprised because
it's crazy
from someone who's actually doing it.
Yeah.
So, final 4 questions that I ask everyone. And these are just quick fire questions to see where your head's at. First one.
Yeah.
This podcast is called The Mindful Creator. Yeah. What does being mindful mean to you?
Being mindful is being self-aware and understanding the impact of your actions, not just for yourself, but on the people around you. And also understanding whatever actions or thoughts or energies you carry, they have long-term implications if they're not on the right path. So you definitely want to stay mindful.
Love that. And any one particular technique that allows you to stay mindful?
Well, I just had a spiritual cleanse at the new office after working from home for a bit. Got a new office, kitting it out at the moment. And I just had Ran come down to do a breathwork session and a spiritual cleanse on the space. And we literally, at my first meeting on our new boardroom table, was me at the top, Ran at the bottom, and me with a blindfold on, so it's completely blacked out, doing breathing, Wim Hof breathing techniques.
Nice.
So that definitely helps to be mindful. It brings you into the moment. You're definitely more present. So yeah, I'll definitely back that.
That's amazing. It's the last thing I expected you to say. And
it's on my Instagram, dude.
Right up my alley. So I love that. What's the number one skill you think someone needs in today's world to be able to succeed?
Resilience. Just simple as that. Can you get knocked back? So easy to go on a growth trajectory. And I know so many people who have had big success, exited businesses. Some of my clients, multimillionaires who have sold businesses that are now working with me on the next iteration. And before they've come on board, limbo, where to go, what to do, because they've already finished and completed that last goal. So resilience is definitely needed because nothing lasts forever. And you've got to be able to take some hits.
Love that. What is the most impactful book or movie?
Oh God, I'm a big movie guy, dude.
So give me
put in a whole pod on this.
Give me number
can't wrap
one.
It up here.
Give me number one movie for you, and then we will do a second podcast just about movies.
Unequivocally, The Matrix. My son's name is Neo. Like, there's a line in The Matrix, right? I think it's from Matrix number 2, where the Oracle, the spiritual guider in the software, the program, she's a program herself. And she says to Neo, you've already made the decision. You're just here now to understand why you made it. Because he's got this big conflict between, does he save his partner or does he fight off the agents? And look, I come from a Sikhi background, right? I grew up in the Gurdwara, like nobody knows about this really. And, you know, we believe in reincarnation. And there's a part of life, you know, with certain circumstances and certain things and certain luck. You know, no one ever talks about luck enough. Could say everything I've achieved and done well, all these successes, it's just luck. I've just been present and available for the luck, right? But understanding, like, and thinking in a sense of, you've already made all these decisions and it's like, you're now just here to understand why you made them, is a very powerful concept. Because if it's written, right, which I'm not saying it is, but if it's written and we're just here to have the experience to learn, what's more about being a student than that?
I love that.
You know what I'm saying? You're not even here, you're just observing your own actions and understanding the thoughts, feelings, and emotions of every decision you make, good or bad.
I absolutely love that. Final question for you. What is the one positive message that you would love to share with everyone listening to this today?
No matter how much money you've got, how many employees you've got, what valuation you've got on your company, what products and services you sell, regardless of all of that, you're still enough as a person. And none of that stuff lessens you as to who you are and your level of self-respect. Because there's a lot of people out there right now, especially with social media, if I don't have the Rollie, if I don't have the Lambo, if I don't have the Porsche, what am I? I'm not good enough. The comparison is at an all-time high. And all of it's just distraction. And parenthood's a great way to discover that. So if you don't have kids and you're all just a material worshipping human being, go and have some kids, man. Because they'll show you the value on material. And I say this with material. You know what I'm saying? And I'm very grateful and lucky. But it's like, you know, people come in sometimes into my events and you'll just sense the insecurity or the lack of self-worth there. And it's like, dude, stand up. I'm just getting started, you know, I haven't got any clients yet. So what? Have a good time anyway. You know what I mean? If you're feeling sorry for yourself or you feel like you're not enough, you're always enough. You're great. You're a human being. Business becomes people's identities because social media promotes the identity in the personal brand and the creation of a personal brand. The problem starts when people start trying to live that perfect life that they show online. And that's where all of the drama that I see online now with male suicides, it's terrible. What the average mindset of men in particular, which is what my experience is, it's at an all-time low. And it's because of this constant comparison with the perfect lifestyles that everyone's putting out online. So my message is you're enough. Have a good time. Have a laugh. Don't put all this pressure on yourself. Let it come to you. There's a great saying, one of my basketball coaches, when you're trying to force the game in basketball, you're trying to score all the points, you're trying to dunk it on people, you're just all about getting it done. But there's times that you just got to let the game come to you and see the opportunities in what's going on. And that's a much better way to live your life. Focus still, but let it come to you. Chase usually attracts run. Let it come to you.
Beautiful sentiment to finish on. Aaron Branch, thank you so much.
Appreciate it.